Hey look, I made a thing. 2 days ago, the GameJam ended, and I failed. But I had my ups and my downs. Sadly, many downs. Last year, I partaked in the same GameJam with something boring. It was just math. But I did turn it into a 2.5D game like this. This year, I decided to partake and make an actual fucking game. Sadly, like you now know, I failed. But it's a nice basis to work further on. If I decide to continue on it, which I kind of already have. Now, what did I do? This is the entire video, an entire log, spanning from start to finish. So, what we did was, or what I did was, start with the basics. Just write everything down. The theme was plants, so basically I just started to think about whatever fucking plant there is. And already one idea stuck with me pretty fast. Worked it out, as you can see. Already had some concept ideas like a Mario-like adventure game, which I thought was pretty fun. Yeah. From the concepting phase, I already started to create a Git as fast as possible. I had a project like some 6 years ago that I finally started and got deleted to the Aether. In the GameBoy Jam, someone else had the same issue where some parts of the projects were completely gone. Fun. Well, since I've only programmed for the Game Boy once, I've forgotten all of it. So I had to relearn it, had some help with the part of my old project, copy paste some stuff, and on the way I go. I started designing some sprites that I wanted to use, using pixel art. Pretty simple. Quickly followed by creating the character sheets. And yeah, started sharing these. Nice. Made some more sprites, so I can use them for any type of interaction. Here I made or remade the basic character that I designed as a background for the starting menu. Really simple. At least I thought so. So when it came to drawing, the way that the file exports, I don't fucking know how it did it. So it kept rendering stuff in the wrong fucking place, which was frustrating as hell. Finally I figured out that it's a 2x2 grid that reoccurs upwards? Whatever the fuck that means. So after figuring that out for fucking, 10 hours? I had to fix it. Here I started to create the logic for the game. Some basic start menu, I want to have a leveling system, and I want to have a game over screen. Real basic stuff. Try to see how I can create a dynamic pointer for this, so I have one method to switch to every single thing. But no, that does not exist. You can see me working on a compiler, or the make file. was trying to see if I can get a working project at all. Before I didn't realize that the header files needed to separately be included. I thought, oh, the header file or the make file that is included with the example from GBDK is fine, it's going great stuff. No, it did not. So I did everything manually, just added all the header files that I keep adding. Now I got a working project that is easily batchable and or made in a batch and can easily be run in like a minute or so. And that's like from compile to build to actually run it in a GameBoy emulator. Yeah. Now, I didn't know this, but when I wanted to include background images, I needed to convert the sprites that I had into a tilemap editor so I have an easier time to portray these. Before I usually did this in code, expecting which format I needed and then make the map itself. Luckily there are tools out there that can help you make these. But yeah, again, the exporting of that was kind of confusing. Had some issues where the sprites were just copying off screen, or the bytes were overflowing, which were causing issues all over the place, where the VRAM was actually leaking. And if you overflow the VRAM, fun stuff can happen where it starts to manually run the code, or I mean, it starts to allocate space to VRAM at random times and random positions. So even though you don't call a change, it will change the VRAM randomly. Now at the point where I wanted to have a scrolling background and want some fade in and fade out for easy transitions, figured out that there is a background registry where you can change the value and it will change the color palette. You can actually use it to flicker the screen, or if you use 4 specific values, you can make it basic, like the standard palette, darker, light gray, then dark gray, and then black. So you have a fade out screen that's easily reproduced. Sadly, the code that I found did not work for me. There's some issues with the GBDK version that I'm using versus the older ones, where some of the packages that you copy paste may be different. So I fixed that later, like 3 days later. No, more like 5. Yeah, so basically if you look online for the first tutorials, you can easily find a Alpha C, which has a pre-made text. What I did was just copy paste the text, Alpha C scripts, and make my mapping. So what I did is I checked everything into VRAM. With the GameBoy emulator that I see you can you can easily open VRAM and see which tiles that are allotted, and then you can just copy paste the addresses and put them in the tile map. You can make a say start, and it's, what is this like then? Let's figure X1C, for example. At this point. Yes. So I wanted to have a scrolling screen. So in some Game Boy games there's an effect where you have a wave. You might have seen this in older Pokemon games when there is like some confusion ray. You can offset each specific X coordinate by setting a specific offset. Unfortunately, I tried to fix this for 2 days, and the only thing I got working was making a specific column, or like a big row offset once. If I try to do multiple pixels but a specific offset, that would curve and loop. Some weird shit started to happen. I think this is easier to do in assembly than doing it in C. Because in C, you don't have access to all the dynamic RAM that you can set. Some of the conversion from C to assembly, something there goes fucking wrong. So yeah, I spent 2 days on that. Tried to see if I can make a log or a debug screen to see what the values are. You can see me print like 3 different variables to see what the x coordinates are, the current position of the y scan line, because I want to see what the scan line of y is to offset the x, and if it's a matching result or not. No, sadly it didn't. And this will go on for like quite a while till I give up and eventually just go by a moving block. This instruction I already found because last year I think Modern Vintage Gamer did a short introduction on how to make a Game Boy game, where he showed that you can scroll different blocks of the background. And I already knew how to do this, but for some reason when I tried to add all this random junk, for some reason it stopped working at all. Yeah, took me a while to fix it. So after the end of the day, I have a nice scrolling piece of text, which the effort for it was totally not worth. Now, at that point, I had fallen ill. I had cut myself, and I had like the last weekend left, because this event is like 10-11 days long, and I had 1 to 2 days in the weekend left to finish this before the deadline ends. And I had basically nothing. So what I did was get on it, make sprites. I tried to do sound before this off stream, but I couldn't be asked. I did make some sounds that are in the game, sort of hidden and never activated. I think I only have a start and death sound currently in. I did try to make music, but that's another piece of hell that I don't want to work with. So I did prep the stuff. It's just that I don't have it actively running. So I made the sprites. I've made the sounds, or prepped the sounds, but I still don't have a game. Here's where things come interesting, because remember that I said there's a memory overflow? What I didn't realize was that if you make a map, like the size that I have is like 100 tiles in the X coordinate, you are limited to like 24? No, like 30. Because you have 255 pixels that go to the X coordinates. This mistake took me a while to figure out. This is also the biggest hurdle that people always post about. So what I did was I made the scrolling background code, which is kind of buggy going backwards, but going forwards it will replace the last two indices with a new scan of what needs to be rendered. Going backwards, I tried to fix that, but for some reason, if I do minus values and you have like, you work with unsigned integers, so if you are on 0, 0, you go back to XFF. And you can then try to offset it by 0 to get a fix on that. But trying to limit the range, you're kind of shooting yourself on the foot. This is also why there's a slight bug if you try to run off screen, and you should technically just make your map like 2 tiles wider and offset it off screen. Stupid of me to not think of it. I just thought, this is fine. I just put everything on the 0 coordinate. Yeah, on this point I'm trying to get the navigation to another scene to work. So I have multiple scenes working in the background. You can see me trying to load a game over screen, which was first text-based, but for some reason kept flipping back and forth. What I figured out like a day later was that I was missing a breakpoint. A simple mistake that you can basically overlook if you just use a switch case. And switch cases have fun facts that if you have a case, a method below it, and then another case, the method rolls just over. So I saw the transition happen, but I did add breaks everywhere else except that one fucking method that I kept forgetting about. And after figuring that out, it was like a breeze. Then I had map transitions, level transitions to the max. So here's what I'm talking about. So I have the issue where the level is loading, but I see the end of the screen. Okay, so I fixed it by having that custom background loader. Then, because of the way tiling works, I wanted to have one row per scan line, because background tiling just if you have one full row, one full row, it is all the X tiles, not the columns. So if you try to make it in columns, you have a map that's turned like this, sideways, and that's fine until you realize that you would have needed to draw your map at a 90-degree angle. Way to solve this is just to export the map in 12 columns, have those displayed as rows, and once it comes to loading, just draw only 12 frames and make a offset that keeps drawing those individual rows as columns. Yes, I'm trying to add a player. Player was a fun part. I just first started off with a camera, which you saw with the scrolling background. Once I had the camera ready, I just copied over the base of the camera where I had the movement already done. I had the locking done, where if you go to the most left, it stops, and most right, it will also stop. So for the play, it would be this exact same. The only difference is that if I wanted to move the camera, I want a slight offset from when this movement will happen. I tried to code this in early on, but because of the fact that I had lost some time, I tried to get movement in first. So I fixed the camera, I didn't move it anymore, and in the end I didn't add it back in because of the fact that like 3 tiles over you needed to make a jump, and there was already a mechanic where you needed to learn to grow a plant or whatever. This mechanic was not implemented yet, so I didn't bother reactivating the camera for the end of the product as well. You see something interesting, which was edge detection. So I did have X and Y coordinate blocks. The only thing was you don't detect the floor. How do you do that? What I did was I used the sensor of the character that I made, which was currently A1. Made a square around it and checked which tiles surrounding it were hitting what kind of thing. So I made a tile-based map for the walls and the floor. Fun fact, if I just, because I only added the floor and not a ceiling, you can technically drop through the floor and also jump up the floor like a platformer selectively. So if I were to add the tile that would be also a ceiling, I would have added a separate if statement for that. And then you would have some free code to have pass through floors or not. Great. If you see the main menu getting fucked, that's basically the remnants of some parts of the edge detection leaking over to the front end or to the main menu where I didn't kill the sprites. So the background image would still just be the same or changed in VRAM, but the processing would still be the same because I did the edge detection and debugging on the same thing. No. We're at the final hour, like literally. I made a base game that allows you to jump, go through platforms, and walk and go off screen and return. There's actually a small benefit where it is auto walking. If you put a character off screen at the 0 position of the map, it will automatically walk in, which is nice. And for the end, I basically only made some cover design, which I probably need to change because of Nintendo licensing. And that's it. Basic game done.